legacy worthy of the term. There is no difficulty. All we need to do is look to the Australians contained within these covers and drink in the cool, refreshing inspiration they devoted their lives to pouring out for us. To these earthly gods of the Antipodes, we salute you, the most Australian way we know, with the joyous cry, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Inventing Australia. The first inhabitants of Australia were, of course, the Aboriginal people, who generations of Australians remember from that one history class when the teacher mentioned them. But the original inhabitants would not have thought of themselves as Australian. The 250 individual nations that occupied the continent had yet to gain the wonderful sense of national unity that white men brought to Australia, along with other marvellous innovations such as guns and smallpox. For many thousands of years, these people lived in total ignorance of what they were missing out on, not even knowing how deprived they were until the European benefactors came along to teach and/or kill them. Of course, those white men didn't yet think of Australia as Australia either. Prior to European settlement, the continent was known in the Old World by a number of names: New Holland, New South Wales, Old Zealand, North Antarctica, the Big Brownie, Snakeville, and Tatooine were all common monikers for the Great Southern Land. When the first fleet sailed into Sydney Cove in 1788, its passengers filled with hope for a quick and painless end to their suffering, it was not Australia to which they thought they had journeyed. It didn't much matter what they called it, though. The fleeters considered themselves British, and the fact that they were on the other side of the world would not stop them feeling that way, or wearing completely inappropriate clothing for the climate. In fact, it took some time for the British and their descendants in Australia to stop thinking of England as home. Some say the tendency only really died out when Robert Menzies passed away in 1978 at the age of 6,000. Australia, under any name, was viewed as an outpost of the British Empire, far beyond the point at which this perception was literally true or even remotely reasonable. And yet somehow, the diverse people of the indigenous nations and the deluded white criminals of the motherland ended up forming a single nation. This amazing land we call Australia, which combines all the best of its brutally cruel origins with the finest in modern complacency and self-deception. But when did Australia truly begin? Who were the first Australians, the people who invented the idea of being Australian, and began the long, slow trek towards discovering exactly what being Australian means? From the very beginning of the clash of cultures that set this land on a collision course with nationhood, there were a few remarkable individuals who, however they began their lives, ended them fully deserving the prestigious and only slightly insulting designation of Great Australian. These, then, are their stories. Bennelong, First Contact High. Governor Arthur Phillip was under pressure. Dispatched to Port Jackson and given the task of founding a new colony on the alien southern continent, he was finding it a lot tougher than anyone had anticipated, mainly because nobody had ever bothered trying to figure out how tough it would be. A combination of factors, from the climate to the unproductive soil, to the fact the British government had not allowed anyone with any practical skills to come to New South Wales, was threatening the success of Phillip's burgeoning settlement. The government, for their part, weren't that fussed. Just by getting 1,000-odd surplus criminals as far away from their country as possible, they'd already hit their main KPI. So the governor was largely on his own, in a hostile land, trying to figure out the best way to build a successful colony out of malnourished convicts, drunken soldiers, and racism. Oh, and of course a few goats, without which they really would have been stuffed. One of the most problematic of Phillip's responsibilities stemmed from an instruction given by King George III of England to the effect that the governor of the new colony should endeavour by every possible means to open an intercourse, grow up, with the natives, and to conciliate their affections, enjoining all subjects to live in amity and kindness with them. This was in the days when people still took instructions from George III relatively seriously, before he began ordering people to move Buckingham Palace to Antarctica and knighting giraffes and so forth. So young Arthur felt he should at least make an effort to do as he was told. This was awkward, though, as the local indigenous population wasn't particularly